Welcome to the University of Findlay Art and Culture Show. I am your host, Sharinda Welton. That was a fun way to say it. We'll just segue right into our special guest, Ryan Gravett, today, who is an alum of the University of Findlay. Welcome back.
Thank you.
It's wonderful to have you here on set.
It's great to be back and be here and getting a chance to talk with you.
Yeah, and you performed earlier today on campus, and then you said, yeah, I'll do an interview because you have done some amazing things that fall under the umbrella of art and culture since you graduated from the university.
I have, yeah.
When you were here, what did you major in?
In theater design and production.
Okay.
So I was in the theater department and did a lot of sound and lighting for their shows, and actually stage managed the musical my senior year.
Awesome.
So, which is totally not in my realm.
Right.
So.
But you've got it on your resume.
That's right, that's right.
And what was that show?
I think it was Bells Are Ringing.
Uh-huh.
I think.
Yep.
It's been a while.
It has been a while, and you've done some amazing things since then. We had the opportunity to get to know each other through programming that you did on campus for the Student Activities Board, and through that, I was able to get you connected to some in the community and beyond connections to continue to hone your skills. And one of the things that I absolutely treasure about our friendship when you were on campus was a very special interview you had. And I had no idea that me saying, I'll give you a ride, you can't miss this opportunity, would lead to me having the opportunity to take something off my bucket list. And that is, I absolutely love Sesame Street, but not to sit and watch it. I've always dreamt of being part of a production with Sesame Street, singing to the kids, talking to the puppets. I've always wanted to do that. And your first big interview was with Sesame Street.
With V Corporation, yeah.
Yeah, and that was in Lima.
In Lima, the company produces Sesame Street Live, or used to. They've since folded.
But at that time, which was very important.
they actually produced the Sesame Street Live tours that went around, and I had an opportunity to go interview with them.
At the Performing Arts Center in Lima.
And meet with one of their audio technicians on the show, and just to see what it was all about, and for them to get to know me and me to get to know them. And
I had no idea we were going to get to watch the whole show. And then we got to go behind. Yeah. Oh, that was so awesome. And I got to see how they store some of the costumes, which is top secret. I can't tell you. But it was fascinating.
Yeah.
And I wish I could have taken pictures, but I behaved and I didn't. And I think that night, someone from, was it Australia or New Zealand, someone high up in their corporation just happened to be there that night, and we got to meet that individual too.
I believe so, yeah.
So that was so cool.
And it was a great way for me to get in with them.
Yes, and you did get in with them.
I did, yeah.
And you were basically hired a job not too long after, or offered a job not too long after that interview, correct?
It was probably 6 months later or
so. Because
so.
you were filling out some forms and providing them other information.
And prior to that, right after I graduated, actually, I was on a cruise ship in the Mediterranean with Royal Caribbean, and spent 4.5 months out there with them, to then come back and join V Corporation, and take out their first national tour of My Little Pony Live.
Yeah, and so let's go to the Mediterranean, because a lot of times students who have the dream of working in production, musical production, theater production, they're often told, you can't make a living doing this. And that's true. There's a lot of people that will never make a living doing this. But you have had some really cool opportunities and experiences to use your skills and your gift set, but also to explore the world.
Oh, totally. It's been amazing since graduating where I've gotten to go. France, Italy, Spain, Japan, the entire US. It's just been crazy where work has taken me.
And the relationships that you have built, because what you do is dependent on positive networking.
That's totally right.
And so there is a term called card holder. Could you explain what "are you a card holder" means?
So in the entertainment business, there are unions involved, and I am a member of the IATSE, which is the Stagehands Union. But there's Actors Equity, there's the Musicians Union, there's the Teamsters who drive our trucks and our buses around, and so I basically was able to get my card thanks to V Corporation.
And so with that, that gives you more mobility to work more locations within the U.S. because there are a lot of shows that say you must already be holding this card or they won't even consider you.
Correct.
So that was a huge gift in your pocket early on in your career.
It really was. And unlike Actors Equity, who have to work union jobs, we're able to work union and non-union jobs as long as we pay attention to the rules and working environments.
Sure.
And making sure that we still hold that value.
Sure. Well, and with that, there are some cities that they won't let you in the city without that card. So it's easy to keep up with the hours and with the performance time that you need to acquire because you are currently considered an independent. Correct?
Yeah.
So that means you can apply for the tours that are card holders.
Yep.
But then if there's something in an area that they don't have anyone, but they need experience and they want to hire someone, what's called one-off, you can apply for something like that and still be able to provide the service.
Correct. Last week, in fact, I was in Long Island at the Gateway Playhouse redoing their production from the summer of Frozen Junior as the designer and the sound engineer. And so that's a non-union job because it's all kids, and I was able to go out and give them the services and the quality that they were looking for.
And you have had, I'm just going to jump all over the place because there's some really cool things that you've done. So we started in the Mediterranean and then we ended up back in New York. But let's go back to the Mediterranean because with the Royal Caribbean Cruise Line, that wasn't your normal shows. Wasn't that tied into ice?
Yeah, I actually, the show I was responsible for was their ice show. All of Royal Caribbean's larger ships actually have ice rinks on board that have a full production show, as well as giving the guests an opportunity to actually go ice skating while they're at sea, which is kind of cool.
Yeah, yeah. And so you did that, and then people may snicker, oh, My Little Pony, but that's a really popular show with kids, and it brings the people out. And you actually, didn't that show when it was on tour, you got to actually work in the Mann's Theater, the Chinese theater in Hollywood, or was it right next door?
It was right next door at what was the Kodak and is now the Dolby Theater, where the Academy Awards are held.
Yeah.
And we actually filmed that show there for a DVD that was released.
And I think I recall you messaging me one of the nights you were working because either Miss America or the Miss Universe pageant was happening like back to back in between what you were doing. Do you remember which one it was?
I don't remember.
Because again, that's been a while
long
ago.
Yeah.
But it's just showing how these places cross over.
Across the street is Jimmy Kimmel,
Yeah.
and so he has shows every night. So it was one of those like, hey, let me go talk to their people to make sure we're not going to interfere and that kind of thing.
And so then let's move back east. And you have had the opportunity to work with shows in Jersey and explain this again to viewers, because there are shows that will open in Chicago or they'll open in San Francisco, they'll open in Jersey, that are considered test markets for what might go for Broadway, correct?
Yep.
So tell us a little bit about how that works.
So most of the time a producer will say, hey, I'm interested in this show. Let's workshop it in New York, see how it goes, get some people interested in it. And then once it gets enough interest.
And that's where they're looking for funding, backing.
Yep.
Okay.
They'll go, okay, let's take the show to San Diego, Seattle, Chicago, and they're going to put it up. They're going to do a full production of it and go, hey, this is actually working. Let's move it to another market, try it in another market, make some changes, some tweaks, and then great, it's been working. Let's now take it to New York, to Broadway, or to off-Broadway. And so it's called workshopping and out-of-town tryouts, and it's just...
It's another part behind Broadway that people may not be aware of.
And it's constant script changes and song changes and
set and sound design.
Everything changes during the day, and so you'll spend 8 hours during the day rehearsing, making changes, and then that night you put those changes into the show, into a preview performance for an audience, and then you go, well, that didn't work, so let's make some changes tomorrow and do the whole process again.
Mm-hmm. And you've had the opportunity to meet some pretty big name people in that arena, because again, when the shows are auditioning, they have different talent come in and out, and because they're reading it, if they're a larger talent, they're deciding if they want to go with the program.
Correct.
And then you've got up and coming talent who's really looking for that breakthrough part that's going to help get them noticed. So you've had the opportunity to meet some, and then there's musicians from big bands that people would know, like I think Journey and...
So one of the shows I had the opportunity to do this with was Toxic Avenger.
Such a fun show.
Which is based off the 80s B-grade movie, written by Joe DiPietro, who wrote I Love You, You're Perfect Now, Change, and Memphis, which was on Broadway.
Such an awesome show, too.
And also by David Bryan, who wrote the music, who is the keyboard player for Bon Jovi.
Yeah.
And he also wrote Memphis as well. And they have a new show coming maybe this year called Diana, based off of Princess Diana. So we did that in New Jersey at a regional theater. Rave reviews, and it moved to New World Stage off Broadway. And has since had a life in London and in regional markets and in community theater markets, and it's great to see it continue on and live and know that I was a part of the original work of it.
And we're talking about networking. In addition to networking and getting the gigs, you also have to keep friends. You can't make enemies, because if you do, you get blackballed. And I know that is not the problem for you. You have a lot of neat contacts, because a gift that you've provided the University of Findlay, when I take students to New York for national leadership conferences, when you're in that area, Ryan has been so generous with his time, because he knows networking. He meets our students, but then when he was working with Toxic Avenger, he was able to provide a meet and greet with the cast afterwards. When we went in and saw Memphis, he was able to connect with us. He went to dinner with us, and then he got to, again, provide an opportunity for meet and greet. And then the one that I remember that was so incredibly special was Phantom of the Opera. The year that we were there, I had students that were actually a married couple that were traveling with us, and I had bought tickets, but you knew someone that worked in, I believe, set and light design.
It was part of the lighting team,
and I don't know how he did this, but we got front row orchestra seats, and they dressed to the nines, and they both had tears in their eyes, and they said, this is a dream come true. They had always wanted to see that show. They couldn't afford to go to that show. It was such a gift. And then we got to go behind the scenes, and he actually showed us the props, the special effects, but then he took us down to show us where costuming was. We got to meet some of the people that work there, and oh my gosh, what an awesome experience. I get goosebumps just thinking about it.
And I love being able to give that opportunity to not only University of Findlay students, but any student or anybody that I know, if I can make some kind of magic happen, it just helps make that experience that much more memorable
and special. And it's good you said magical, because Ryan also has worked for Disney, and you worked some magic down in Disney for us too. So tell us what parks you worked at in Disney, what you did there.
So I worked at Hollywood Studios at Walt Disney World Resort, and I was a sound engineer and a technician. I did Beauty and the Beast live on stage, Jedi Training Academy, Frozen Sing-Along, as well as numerous special events, including their marathons and the opening of New Fantasyland at Magic Kingdom.
That's all. And you met a very, 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 very important princess.
I did. I actually met my wife working at Walt Disney World.
How many people can say that? Probably a lot in your field, in your ring. But that is so cool. And she has an amazing, successful record on her side of performance also.
She worked there as a performer for 10 years.
10 years. And it started out for her as an internship.
In their college program, which is, something a lot of college students don't realize they have that opportunity for.
It is available to check out.
And not just in production or characters or entertainment or whatever. They could actually do food and beverage and merchandise or guest relations, and it just.
And they train you from the time you get in and they hand you your security pass. They start training you to be a cast member. Is what it's called at Disney. Yeah.
Yeah. Everybody.
So cool. And so you worked magic for us again. We had students down in Florida for a conference, and I didn't tell my students, so this was a total surprise. But he gifted us with a van and came and picked us up, took us into park, and you did this on more than one occasion, but because you knew all the behind-the-scenes ways to get around the park, we had our personal guide here, didn't have to pay all that money for it, and missed all the big crowds, but got to so many of the shows. And
attractions.
Yeah, and we wouldn't have been able to do that without you, so it pays to network, and it pays to stay in touch with people.
It does.
So yeah, you have had some great fun opportunities, and one you're just wrapping up right now. I'm really excited for, and I'm crossing my fingers that it will be in New York either this July, August, or late
Spring
fall,
or whatever,
because it's going to be from the sneak peeks I've been privileged to have access to. It's going to be another wowzer show.
It should be. Yeah.
Tell us about this, because again, your job put you on a plane.
Yeah.
And you got to go west, boy.
So thanks to doing other shows, a designer I had worked with previously, who is the associate for a large Broadway designer, called me and said, "Hey, I have a project that I need somebody to go on as an assistant to said big Broadway designer," and I was like, "Okay, let me see if I can make this work," and was able to, through some finagling and some thinking and soul searching, made a decision. And
support with your princess.
Yes.
Or the queen now.
Went to San Diego for 6 weeks to be the...
So rough.
It doesn't rain there, so...
I know.
6 weeks in San Diego to be the assistant sound designer for the pre-Broadway run of Almost Famous the Musical, based off of the movie Almost Famous. So I had a chance to work with Cameron Crowe, who not only wrote and is the basis of Almost Famous, but he also directed We Bought a Zoo and Jerry Maguire, and
yeah, he's
a big person, well known in Hollywood and now hopefully in New York.
Yeah.
The show had rave reviews in San Diego, and we had press from all over the country come see it. And so now we're kind of just sitting and waiting to see what happens, and fingers crossed that sometime within the next year it might go to New York, and hopefully I'll continue the ride with it. But that's, again, up in the air. And
everything's timing.
Yeah.
And that's the part that is the art and culture part we can talk about a little bit here. We see the magic when we go to see a show, whether it's on a national tour or it's in a set theater in one of the main stays in the US, or over in London. It's very popular to go there for the shows. But there's a lot of behind the scenes sweat, toil, tears, negotiating that goes on. So it's a hurry up and wait.
It is, yeah.
And while you're hurry up and waiting, you have to be out there hustling and trying to find other opportunities and continue these networks.
Because I still need to live and make a living.
While not burning this network.
Right.
So if this golden opportunity comes, you're available.
Right.
And we hear oftentimes, especially during Academy Awards and things, that it's somebody else was up for it, but they just weren't available because they were doing something else, and it was
Yep.
the breakout role for someone else,
Yeah.
or the breakout director opportunity. And so it's a juggling act.
It really is, and so as I'm working on booking other gigs and other projects throughout the year, I have to keep in mind that this other project could come about. And so, as I'm booking them, I even say to whoever I'm booking with that, hey, just so you know that if this project comes about, I'm going to have to take this project. I'm not giving that project up or giving it to somebody else. I'm going to keep that project. So,
Well, and that's very wise on your part, that honesty and that openness, that candidness, and it's probably why you have the relationships you have, why you get the phone calls you get, which is so smart.
I mean, I have conversations weekly with different Broadway designers, and we just talk about just random stuff and how's your wife, how's your kids, how's the, and it just keeps that door open for those conversations and for projects.
Yeah. So some other things that you've done, people know about Broadway, they know that there's national tours, but if you're thinking about going to New York, there's something really special that happens in the summertime there, and some people are not aware of it because they don't live there and they see so many other tourist attractions, but there's something that happens in Central Park there in the summertime, and you've had the opportunity to be able to be a part of that with set and design. Could you tell us what that is and describe it a little bit?
Are you talking about the Shakespeare in the Park stuff?
Shakespeare and Theater in the Park, yep.
Yeah. It's an outdoor space that does most of the time just a Shakespeare, but it's just a magical area to go to because it's just this big open area that's got seating, and they basically make a theater for this one show in the summer, and it becomes, it's in the evening, it's outdoors, it kind of takes you back to,
the Shakespearean days,
or even back as far as Greece and the Greek theater.
And so they are mic'd, so you can hear them. But like you said, you've got, and Central Park is so cool because you can be in the park and all of a sudden you realize, I'm not hearing all the sirens, I'm not hearing all the horns.
As you get it deeper and deeper into Central Park,
it's magical itself.
There's no vehicular traffic.
Right.
So it literally becomes, you're in
An
this
oasis.
big green space
Yeah.
in the middle of this bustling city that this time of year there's, ice skating rinks. There's a zoo in Central Park, which is
also in many movies.
Yes.
Even the black and white ones from year. And what's really cool is when you watch those old black and white movies and you're watching them scan, that skyline hasn't changed a whole lot right in that area. That was there way, way back.
Yeah.
So now, is there a fee to go to the Shakespeare in the Park?
Most of the time it's a free ticket, but you have to wait in line. And there's.
But you hear the insects, you hear the water, you hear nature.
Yeah.
In addition to what they have set.
Yeah.
So when they're setting it, they are preparing the audience for that.
Right.
And when I say they, you're part of that. That's part of what you guys are doing. So it's wonderful. So if you're going to Central Park in the summer, check out and see if maybe you can be there while Shakespeare in the Park is happening. Yeah.
But not even that. There's also discounted tickets and rush tickets and standing room tickets and student tickets for Broadway shows. So it gives an opportunity for people who may not be able to afford the $175 ticket.
Or some of them are $1,000.
A chance to see some of the top Broadway shows that are out there right now.
And that's where Broadway's giving back. Their business is giving back.
And not only with that, there's Broadway does fundraising events. One that I support, even though I'm not a member of Equity, but all of the unions support it, is Broadway Cares Equity Fights AIDS.
Yes, and we support that here at the university too. We've done a lot of fundraising for them.
And it gives back to the community within that community.
Yeah, and within that community nationwide.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And it's not just the New York shows that fundraise, it's
Correct.
all the tours, the regional theaters will do fundraising, and I give $20 or $50 every time I go and they're fundraising. I mean, it's
a way to make a difference.
Yeah.
And they do make a difference.
They really do.
And they use that money also to invest in youth theater across the country, and helping with so many things beyond the specific health care.
Yeah, I mean, it brings...
They do a lot with that, though. That's their main
It brings,
course.
you know, some of that money goes to help underprivileged children be able to experience theater for the first time.
And go to the workshops.
Shops and
Yeah.
yeah.
So we talked a little bit about the national tours. You were on one, and you made it magical, Chicago. And it was an amazing cast that was touring with you at that time. But tell us, what is that like? Because you're in a city for what, 3 to 5 days, maybe a week if you're lucky.
A week, 7 days tops, yeah.
Yeah, and then you're on the road, maybe going 3 states away, 5 states away. So as someone that works behind the scenes to make all these god and goddesses look awesome for the show, what does your schedule look like?
So we'll travel on a Monday normally, and could be as early as a 6 a.m. or a 5 a.m. flight. So we may not even go to bed that night on Sunday night. We may just stay up and go to the airport. We'll fly to the next city most of the time. Sometimes we'll get on a sleeper bus where we have a bunk and we'll pass out for a couple hours and then go to work. But on a full week, we'll fly normally, get into the city. We'll have enough time to grab lunch. Then we'll go to do 5 hours of load-in.
Explain what load-in is for people that may
So
not know.
it's when we take everything that we travel with off the trucks and put it into the theater and set it up for that show. Every show travels with their entire show. So we walk into a bare theater. So there's nothing hung, no curtains, no lights, and we put everything in ourselves with the help of the local crew.
And some people may be confused because you're saying you're flying, but then you're saying there's trucks. You have a team that's hired specifically to drive the semis.
The 5 or 6 or 8 or 15 trucks that some of the shows now have.
It's a little city on the road.
It really is. I mean, you have a crew of 10, 12 people and a cast of 20, 25, and you move the show everywhere.
And then you've got your locals that come in
and help to set it up and help run the show. And so we'll finish 5 hours on Monday. We'll come in on Tuesday. We'll start at 8 a.m. We'll work basically through the end of the first show on Tuesday night. We'll have a show Wednesday night, Thursday night, Friday night. Sometimes during that week there might be a work call where we'll come in and we'll do notes or maintenance or repair things, or there might be a put-in rehearsal for a actor who's joining the show. Then we'll do 2 shows on Saturday and 2 shows on Sunday. And then Sunday after the 7 o'clock show or whatever, so 9:30, 10 o'clock at night, we'll take everything and put it all back in its boxes, put it back on a truck, and start again.
That doesn't sound very glamorous.
It's not.
That's the part that people don't see when they see the glamorous shows and the costumes.
I've had actors come to me and go, "Oh, you were in the last city."
Yeah, you're just following them around.
And I'm going to be in this city and the next city and the city after that, and they don't sometimes get that.
Well, and that's a really good point, because your part of art and culture is set light design, and within the world of musical theater, that's your emphasis, everybody has their own little neighborhood. And so it's not a surprise that some people don't know who's doing other parts,
right,
because they're focusing on their lines, their dances, their timing, right, their marking, trusting that these other little pockets of people are
all
doing,
come together and make it all,
and weave that tapestry of what we see as a golden show.
Correct. And on a show like Chicago, where they rely so heavily on large name celebrities to come in and fill roles in the leads. That's a rotating door that you never know who's going to be there. We know, but it keeps changing.
And it can change again because they also, like you, if this comes up, I'm taking it.
Yeah.
And then everyone's hustling.
Yep.
So.
I mean, I've had a show where my Billy Flynn was supposed to be so-and-so, and that person had to drop out. And so they had to fly the understudy for Billy Flynn from New York in to be our Billy Flynn for that week because of that change in the schedule.
So there's a lot of flexibility. There's a lot of networking. There's a lot of team building, team working, and then there's a lot of boundaries. And so because this just isn't enough, another thing that you do is you are an actor yourself seasonally as Santa Claus.
I am, yeah.
And he's an amazing Santa Claus. But what I absolutely love about this, Ryan, is that your heart is the heart of Christmas, in the fact that if you know that there is a child that is not able to get to a community or a public location, you build a rapport with the family so that you can make that special friendship, that interaction take place in a space that's healthy and safe for them.
Correct, yeah.
And you've worked with many different groups to make some dreams come true. So could you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, I've done some Make-A-Wish events where I've gone and done a Make-A-Wish event for a young man who had leukemia, and his wish was to meet Santa and to raise some money to help other kids. And so the fire department in the area helped out with that event, and it was a great, the smile on his face, it was just amazing. And then more recently, I've been working with a nonprofit called the Secret Sleigh Project that is starting to actually become a worldwide thing that started in Denver, Colorado. And it's basically run by 4 moms who have 4 special needs children. And because they couldn't get their children out to see Santa at the mall or whatever because of their special needs, they said, let's try to put something together for other families so that Santa can come to the house or to the hospital or whatever to greet our child. And so I do a lot of work with them as families come about that need that service.
And I know that you performed as Santa here today for a program that the university was hosting. But what I love about you is you don't just say, yes, I will come and do this for the university. You every year say, are there children that are autistic? Are there children that maybe are not able to comfortably walk the distance? You're always checking in to see if there's children that you need to meet with and support their families. Yeah. And that there's not a lot of people out there doing that. And that's where you're bringing Christmas to life for families. So thank you for doing that. And he totally transforms himself. He looks like a nice young man, but boy, can he look great gray and white. And you've taken so much thought and commitment into your costume too. It's just amazing. So maybe we'll sneak a picture to the director of the show and see if we can sneak that in so people can see you. Okay. So thank you so much for being here. What year did you graduate?
2006.
Yeah, so it hasn't been all that long,
but it's been a long time.
It has been an amazing journey, and I know your journey has not ended. I told Ryan when he was in college, you will be at the Tonys one day. And I know he will be. It's closer than we think.
Let's hope.
Yeah. So thank you for allowing us to share some of your life adventures with our viewing audience. And we are excited to continue to cheer you on behind the scenes, making musical productions come to life for us to be able to be encouraged educated, challenged, inspired. You do that for us. So thank you.
Thank you.
And thank you. We look forward to seeing you the next time on the University of Findlay Art and Culture Show. Until then, be well.